Developers say it's almost impossible to build right now because it's too expensive.
Their margins have been squeezed.
Driving up costs the most is development charges. Development charges in Toronto have gone up more than 40%.
By just taxing new development, because that's actually hindering us building enough housing supply.
The idea that that is just going to be placed on the backs of new home purchasers, of new home buyers, of new tenants is completely unfair.
Here are the biggest expenses that you're going to be running into if you're trying to buy real estate in Toronto. And brace yourselves because it's crazy. A new study just done by the Ontario Real Estate Association found that 49% of Ontarians who really want to own a home have either given up or believe that they never will own a home. And before you just jump to the conclusion that it's going to be the government's problem and that they're the ones that should be providing us a solution now, think again. They're the ones actually tacking on the biggest charges that are making it super expensive to buy a home in Toronto. Let's start with new homes. There are a ton of charges and fees involved with buying a new home, but by far the most expensive part are development fees charged by the city. And those development fees are passed along to you as a consumer. A previous study conducted by the Building Industry and Land Development Association found that in the Greater Toronto Area, which has some of the largest developer-incurred government charges in North America, they contribute to a 27% markup on the average new home cost.
Developers say it's almost impossible to build right now because it's too expensive.
Their margins have been squeezed. If developers obviously could lower prices to attract sales, they would do so. Lowering prices effectively makes the projects unfeasible for development.
Driving up costs the most is development charges. Development charges in Toronto have gone up more than 40%.
Every single one of those dollars has to be paid for somehow, and it ultimately means the price of the homes have to go up.
This longtime developer got together with more than 30 others to say enough's enough. They started a group called the Coalition Against New Home Taxes, calling on the government to cut fees and taxes, pledging to reduce the price of all homes dollar for dollar.
Development charges get paid for when you break ground, when you pull your first permit. HST gets paid for at the end. Land transfer taxes get paid for at the end. If none of these projects start and none of these homes get built, not only are you not going to get any of those taxes, you also won't get the property taxes on these homes. So I think it's in everyone's best interest to act very quickly.
The idea that that is just going to be placed on the backs of new home purchasers, of new home buyers, of new tenants is completely unfair.
The vice chair of the city's Housing and Planning Committee says the city needs to rethink development charges.
We probably need to rethink how we finance infrastructure generally, right? In the big picture, we are probably financing it inefficiently by just taxing new development because that's actually hindering us building enough housing supply.
Right now, construction has stalled. New housing isn't being built, and supply in the GTA in the next few years is in jeopardy.
But let's say you were to overcome all of these huge hurdles and save up enough money to be able to afford the development charges that are coming from the city, or let's say you bought resale and paid an enormous bill when it comes to land transfer tax, which, by the way, in Toronto is 2x what it is anywhere else in the province. And that money has to come over and above your down payment. You still have major holding costs. Olivia Chow just announced another huge property tax increase. Just this week, Olivia Chow announced another 6.9% coming in 2025 for property taxes. Now, to give you some perspective, over the last 4 years, property taxes have gone up 30% in Toronto. In 2020, average property taxes in Toronto were $4,460. Somebody earning $100,000 a year could afford a mortgage of roughly $400,000. Now, with the massive property tax increase over the last 4 years, average property taxes are $5,800 a year, meaning somebody earning $100,000 could now only qualify for a mortgage of $300,000. $380,000. And this is really hurting first-time buyers. Let me explain. When you go to purchase a home, you have to get a pre-approval from a bank. That lender is going to calculate what's called a total debt servicing ratio. They're going to look at your income and basically say, well, if you had to carry all of the expenses associated with an average property, how much can you afford to actually hold based on your income? Property taxes are a natural part of that equation because it is part of your holding costs for real estate. So the more that property taxes go up, the more it actually reduces the ability for first-time buyers to get into the market. But the city, just like the province and just like the federal government, has a massive spending problem. Toronto just announced their 2025 budget, and it is in a deficit of $1.8 billion, and it is making housing less affordable.
Well, it's certainly never been more expensive to live in the city of Toronto, and Mayor Chow's default response to any issue down here is to raise taxes and fees on residents. And a budget increase today that is triple the rate of inflation, coupled with a record-breaking increase last year, doesn't make the city more affordable, it makes it more expensive. The size and scope of the government has grown so significantly under Mayor Chow. We've really never seen anything like that before. For your listeners and for context, this is a $1.8 billion increase over last year's budget, and continued to increase the taxes, again, in this case, triple the rate of inflation, at a time when people are struggling to put food on the table, pay their rent, pay their mortgage. And at the end of the day, City of Toronto doesn't influence trade policy, it doesn't influence grocery prices, but we do control the tax bill. And Olivia Chow, for the second year in a row, has decided to make that a lot more expensive.
$1.8 billion increase in spending. Where is the money going? Where's this 1.8 billion in extra spending going?
Well, there's a couple of factors, and I think what's most frustrating for people is they're paying a lot more, but we're not actually seeing that improvement in services that was promised. So Mayor Chow has signed the most expensive collective bargaining agreements in the city's history. She started that off with the transit union, which of course was very cozy with her during the election.
They helped get her elected, didn't they?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, endorsement and volunteers and resources. So one of the first things that she did when she took office was create 200 additional positions, not positions that would deal with safety or fare evasion, where we lose 140 million, more than 10% of the TTC's budget on an annual basis. Nothing to deal with that, but information officers or agents that stand on the subway entrances and tell you where to go. So in terms of improving service, that doesn't really improve the service. It doesn't improve the reliability. So there was money for that. And then the new collective bargaining agreement, as I mentioned, more expensive than any other deal inked in North America. We have a new collective bargaining agreement with our outdoor workers. So we're paying more for that, and also negotiating right now with our indoor workers. So all of those things mean you are paying more because she's kind of sold the farm on those deals, and you're just receiving the same or worse service. So a lot of the money just goes out the door right there for that, because inevitably the bureaucrats are going to tell you that everything they're doing is essential. So you need
turkeys don't vote for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right. So you need an outside perspective. We try to be all things to all people all the time. And that's not a new problem, but it's certainly gotten worse under this mayor. You know, when Mayor Chow got in here, she promised, hey, I'm going to give you a modest tax increase. Turns out it was a record-breaking tax increase, but you're going to see improvements. Well, when you look across the board at all the metrics, crime is up, shootings are higher than they were last year. It's never been more congested and difficult to get around the city than it is right now. The TTC has never been less reliable. Encampments have doubled. And for all of that, you are paying significantly more than you were 2 years ago. And I think we need to focus on the basics to get the city back into a situation where it's somewhere you actually want to live. We've lost our way. You know, we've made it so difficult to navigate the city of Toronto. The feedback I get get more often than not is people just want to see the basics taken care of, a city that actually works and functions, where you don't feel like you have to be looking over your shoulder when you're walking down the street. When you show up to the TTC station, you know the train's going to be there and it's going to operate as prescribed, and that you have housing options that you can actually afford. You can grow a business without all the red tape and regulation that makes it very difficult to be an entrepreneur in Toronto. These are the things that they want us to focus on, and it's not that complicated, but we don't really have the attention or the leadership that would take action on those files.
So with development fees being jacked up by roughly 30%, making up somewhere between 20 to 25% of the total actual cost of a condo, and holding costs going up dramatically with increasing property taxes at a rate that Toronto frankly has never seen before, first-time buyers are giving up. And who can blame them? And with first-time buyers gone from the market, it means that anybody holding a condo at that entry-level asset class has no one to sell to, which means that they can't upsize if they need to if they have a growing family, which means that the entry-level freehold people have no one to sell to because the condo people can't sell to first-time buyers, and all the way trickling up. This is seriously affecting our market. When our governments spend, we foot the bill ultimately. So as Torontonians and Canadians, we have to really think long and hard about what kind of problems we want the government to be pretending to solve for us. But hey, that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right below. If you really like this video, check out this other one right over here.